Here are Grandma's 40 quilting hacks and tips that you wish you knew sooner. Chain piece blocks to save thread. If you're sewing lots of patchwork units, chain piecing is a major time saver. Instead of clipping threads between each set, you run pieces through the machine one after another without lifting the presser foot. Grandma swore by this. She'd chain together dozens of half-square triangles before even standing up. It not only conserves thread, but also keeps your pieces in order. When finished, simply snip the connecting threads to separate them. Try pressing before cutting them apart to help set the seams evenly. You can also organize chain-pieced rows on a flannel board to keep blocks aligned during assembly. Nest and spin seams for flat four-patches. Did you know that spinning the seams on a four-patch block helps it lie flatter? After sewing two patch units together, carefully unstitch the last few threads in the center seam. Then press each seam in a circular motion so they fan out. This trick reduces bulk where seams intersect, making quilting over them much easier. It also helps the block maintain shape and accuracy when joined with others. Press from the back first, then give it a final flattening from the front. Add a dab of starch if needed to keep seams crisp and cooperative during quilting. Wax hand quilting thread with beeswax. Beeswax is a small tool with a big impact in quilting. Drawing your hand quilting thread through a block of beeswax strengthens it and prevents tangles. The wax coats the fibers, helping the thread glide through the fabric layers with less friction. It also reduces wear and breakage during stitching. Simply press the thread into the wax and pull it through a few times before threading your needle. Then run it between your fingers to smooth out any buildup. Keep a small beeswax disc in your sewing tin and refresh your thread every few feet for consistent tension and strength. Hand-based quilt layers to avoid ripples. If you're quilting without a machine, hand-basting your quilt sandwich ensures a smoother finish. Grandma always took the time to pin and then thread-baste each layer, top, batting, and backing before beginning the quilting itself. This helps prevent puckering or shifting as you work, especially with large quilts. Use long, even stitches with contrasting thread to hold everything in place, removing them as you progress. Work from the center outward to ease out bubbles and wrinkles. For easier handling, roll the edges inward and unroll them gradually as you stitch across the quilt top by hand. Use painter's tape as a quilting guide. Painter's tape is a low-tech but high-impact quilting helper. Lay down a strip across your quilt top to mark straight lines for stitching. No chalk or marking pens needed. It peels off cleanly and won't leave residue or damaged fabric. You can reposition it multiple times to maintain evenly spaced quilting rows. Use different widths of tape to vary the line distance or overlap multiple strips to mark patterns. It's especially helpful when hand quilting geometric designs. Keep a roll in your sewing kit and tear off fresh strips as needed while quilting across large sections or borders. Press, don't iron, to prevent stretching. Moving the iron back and forth can warp your fabric, especially on bias edges. Instead, use the pressing technique. Lower the iron, apply firm pressure, and lift without sliding. Grandma always reminded to press, not iron, if we wanted crisp blocks that stayed square. This method helps seams lie flat while keeping the grain intact. Set your seams first, then press them open or to one side depending on your pattern. For best results, use a dry iron and a pressing cloth to prevent shine. Keep a tailor's clapper nearby to lock in the press as fabric cools. Use a sandpaper board when marking. A homemade sandpaper board holds fabric steady while marking seam lines, avoiding fabric shift or distortion. Simply glue fine grit sandpaper to a board and place fabric right side up. As you mark, the sandpaper grips it from beneath. This ensures accuracy, especially useful for diagonal lines or templates. Keep pencil marks light and sharp for precision cutting and sewing. Try different grit levels for delicate or heavier fabrics to prevent fraying. Pair this setup with a transparent ruler to line up angles clearly. Use it when tracing applique shapes, hand-stitch lines, or when marking half-square triangle guides. Mark seams with chalk for accuracy. Chalk is a classic quilter's marking tool for good reason. It's easy to apply, easy to see, and easy to remove. Use it to mark seam allowances, stitch lines, or alignment points. Tailor's chalk, chalk wheels, or even leftover school chalk work well. Make sure it contrasts with your fabric and test for removability. Draw light, straight lines to avoid tugging the grain. Avoid wax-based pencils which can stain or set under heat. Keep a small brush or damp cloth nearby to wipe off marks as you go. Refresh markings before each cut or stitch line for optimal clarity. Tape a 1/4-inch seam guide. Accuracy starts with the right seam allowance. Tape down a 1/4-inch guide on your sewing machine using painter's tape, masking tape, or washi. This visual aid ensures your seams stay consistent, especially helpful for beginners or late-night piecing sessions. Line up the fabric edge with the tape edge and stitch confidently. Reposition or replace the tape as needed to maintain precision. Use a ruler or seam gauge to measure from your needle when placing the tape. Some quilters even layer 2 strips for a tactile bump to guide the fabric. This small trick can dramatically improve your block consistency. Use 50-weight cotton thread for piecing. When piecing quilt blocks, a fine thread makes a noticeable difference. 50-weight cotton thread is strong yet slender, helping seams lay flatter and reducing bulk at joins. It feeds smoothly through machines and rarely breaks during hand piecing. Choose a neutral color like light gray or beige. It blends with most fabrics without showing through. Wind several bobbins ahead of time to keep workflow steady. Cotton also shrinks slightly with washing, tightening seams just a touch and lending long-term durability. Store thread spools in a closed box to avoid dust and sun fading during long quilting sessions. Strip piece fabric sets for speed. Instead of sewing individual squares, strip piecing lets you join long fabric strips first, then cut them into units. It speeds up block assembly while improving accuracy. Align 2 or more strips, stitch lengthwise, then slice into identical segments for 9 patches, rails, or bricks. Keep seam allowances consistent and press before cutting. Use a sharp rotary cutter and ruler to keep slices even. Mix colors and patterns to create visual interest. This method is perfect for scrappy quilts or when working with pre-cut jelly rolls. Stack finished strip sets by project to stay organized during large quilt builds. Sew on leaders and enders to stop thread nests. Thread nests at the beginning of seams can be frustrating and messy. By using leaders and enders, small fabric scraps stitched before and after your quilt pieces, you keep the thread tension even and avoid jams. This trick also reduces waste and prevents fabric from being pulled into the feed dogs. Over time, your leaders and enders can even become their own patchwork project. Set aside a stack of scraps specifically for this purpose. Use them consistently, and you'll save time unpicking tangled starts. Keep a basket nearby so you're always ready to start and finish cleanly. Finger press seams at the machine. Did you know that finger pressing seams dates back centuries, well before irons became common tools in every home? Finger pressing involves using your fingernail or a pressing tool to flatten seams right at your sewing machine. It's especially handy when chain piecing or working with delicate fabrics that don't tolerate constant ironing. This technique lets you check fit and alignment before committing to a full press. Apply light pressure and run your finger firmly along the seam for a quick set. Keep a wooden seam roller beside your machine for extra precision without leaving your chair. Square blocks before joining rows. If you don't square up your blocks, even a perfect seam won't save the final quilt. Trimming each block to its intended size ensures that your rows match and your points align. Use a rotary cutter, ruler, and mat to trim excess, checking all corners and sides. This step takes time, but prevents compounding errors that distort your quilt top. Don't rely on fabric stretching to fix misaligned edges. Be meticulous now and save yourself frustration later. Stack your squared blocks in labeled rows to keep them in order and ready to stitch seamlessly. Measure borders through the center. Rather than measuring quilt borders along the edge, always measure through the center of the quilt for the most accurate length. The outer edges can stretch or skew slightly during piecing, but the center provides a consistent baseline. Fold the quilt top evenly, measure across the middle, and cut your border to match. This method keeps quilts square and avoids wavy borders. Pin borders in place, easing fabric as needed to distribute any slight discrepancies. For larger quilts, measure at several points and average the numbers. Double check before cutting to avoid wasting precious border fabric. Cut and roll binding strips early. Grandma always said to plan ahead when it came to quilt bindings, and she was right. Preparing your binding strips before the quilt is finished lets you work more efficiently and reduces last-minute delays. Cut the strips to your desired width, usually 2.5 inches, and join them into one continuous length. Punch a hole in each and hang them on a ring to flip through quickly. Like a quilter's deck of rulers you'll never lose in your stash. Store dull blades for crafts. Not every rotary blade stays sharp forever, but don't toss them just yet. Grandma would say waste not, want not. And that goes for quilting supplies too. Keep your duller blades in a marked container for paper crafts, interfacing, or cutting batting. They still slice through thin materials with ease. Label the container clearly to avoid confusion with fresh blades. Stack used blades between felt circles and store them in an old mint tin. It creates a portable, recycled craft cutter set that fits in your notions drawer and keeps your workspace safe from stray edges. Save fabric clippings for pincushion stuffing. Tiny fabric bits may look like trash, but they make excellent stuffing. Instead of tossing scraps and threads from trimming seams or squaring blocks, collect them in a fabric bag or jar. Once you've got enough, stuff them into homemade pincushions. This method is both sustainable and practical. Your pincushion stays firm and durable. The density from mixed fibers also helps sharpen pins slightly with each poke. Mix in a teaspoon of steel wool or emery to create a dual-action cushion that stores your pins and keeps them sharp every time they're inserted. Tie garden plants with selvage strips. Selvage edges from quilting fabric don't stretch or fray, making them ideal for garden ties. Instead of buying twine, cut your selvage scraps into 8 to 10 inch strips and keep them in your gardening apron. They're strong enough to support tomato vines or climbing beans, yet gentle enough not to damage stems. Wrap loosely and tie with a simple bow for easy adjusting as the plant grows. Wind a dozen strips around an empty thread spool and clip it with a clothespin to your garden basket so it's always within arm's reach. Use a wooden spoon handle as a point turner. Turning corners on sewn items like pillow covers, quilted bags, or pot holders can be tricky. A simple wooden spoon handle, long and rounded, makes the perfect point turner without poking through fabric. Unlike sharp objects, it gently eases fabric into corners for a smooth, professional finish. Slide it into each corner carefully and roll the fabric outward with slight pressure. Rub a bar of soap or wax along the spoon tip beforehand to help the wood glide smoothly and reduce resistance inside thicker seams or layered projects. Place batting under spools to reduce noise. Quieter quilting spaces allow for more focused stitching. If your spool of thread rattles or chatters while unwinding, slip a small circle of batting underneath it. This cushions the motion and reduces clatter, especially on metal spool pins. Cut a coin-sized round from scrap batting and slide it under the spool. For better performance, layer it between 2 thin felt pads to help the thread feed evenly and reduce snagging during longer stitching runs, especially when chain piecing or quilting large projects with high-speed tension. Clean feed dogs with an old toothbrush. Lint and thread fuzz gather quickly around your machine's feed dogs, making fabric bunch and skip. Instead of waiting for a service visit, grab an old toothbrush and sweep between the teeth. The bristles lift debris that canned air might blow deeper inside. Gently brush away from the bobbin case to avoid packing lint down. For even better results, wrap a bit of batting around the brush tip to pick up fine dust. Keep this tool beside your machine and clean after every big project to ensure smooth feed and even stitch tension. Keep a notebook of block sizes and notes. Keeping track of measurements, settings, and shortcuts helps avoid repeated mistakes. A small notebook just for quilting lets you jot down block sizes, seam allowances, layout plans, and piecing tricks. Include fabric swatches or thread colors for future reference. It's like a recipe book for your quilting life. When you return to a project after a break, you won't need to remeasure or second-guess decisions. Use sticky tabs to mark ongoing quilts and always pencil in the date started. Especially helpful when juggling multiple projects or adjusting blocks for odd-size sashings. Press seams open at intersections. Did you know that pressing seams open at intersections reduces bulk and creates flatter blocks? This technique helps quilt tops lie smoother and reduces bumps that can catch the needle during machine quilting. Use the tip of your iron, applying gentle pressure to coax seams open. Avoid steam, which may distort fabric grain. To make the process easier, press from the back first, then give a final press from the front for a crisp finish. Keep a seam roller nearby for fast touch-ups if your iron isn't hot enough to open nested layers easily. Trace templates on paper bags. No fancy template plastic? No problem. The brown paper from grocery bags works perfectly for tracing shapes, marking applique outlines, or cutting quick templates. Flatten the bag, cut it open, and iron it gently on low heat if needed. Use a fine point pencil or fabric pen to trace your shapes cleanly. Paper templates can be pinned, glued, or basted without distorting your fabric. Label each with grain direction and seam allowance. Store them in an envelope taped to the project box so you don't waste time redrawing when you're ready to pick up again. Wrap yardage around cardboard for storage. Instead of folding fabric haphazardly, wrap yardage around comic boards or cut cardboard pieces to keep your stash tidy and visible. This method saves space and prevents deep creases. Use binder clips to secure slippery fabrics and stack wrapped bundles on end like books. Label the top edge with yardage and fabric type using masking tape for quick reference. Recycle clean cardboard from boxes and trim them all to the same size. Rotate the outer wrap every few months to prevent fading along the edges from window light or storage bins. Store projects in pillowcases. Grandma always believed in keeping things simple and tidy, and her favorite storage method for unfinished quilt projects was a clean cotton pillowcase. Unlike plastic, fabric breathes, helping prevent moisture buildup and yellowing. It's a perfect size for keeping blocks, backing, and patterns together without squishing or folding too tightly. Label each case with a clothespin tag or embroidery on the edge. You can even hang them over a closet rod using skirt hangers. To go the extra mile, tuck a lavender sachet inside to deter moths and keep everything smelling fresh while it waits. Embroider initials and dates on quilt backs. There's something powerful about signing your work. Embroidering your initials and the completion date directly on the quilt back turns every project into a time capsule. Use a back stitch or simple chain stitch in a matching or contrasting thread. This not only adds a personal touch, but also helps future generations trace the quilt's maker. Stitching near a corner or along a binding edge keeps it visible without distracting from the design. Add the quilt's name or the recipient's initials for a more meaningful message. Include thread color in your quilt journal for easy reference on future heirlooms. Hang quilt tops on padded hangers. Instead of folding unfinished tops and stuffing them into drawers, use a padded hanger to keep them wrinkle-free and ready for sandwiching. Fold tops lengthwise and drape them carefully over the hanger, avoiding hard creases. Wrap them loosely in muslin if you need to store them long-term. Use skirt or trouser hangers with foam sleeves to prevent indents. Clip a tag to each with size, status, and what's left to do, so nothing gets forgotten. Keep them in a spare closet or behind a door, and rotate them regularly to avoid stress on the same folds. Use a muslin sleeve to avoid deep creases. When storing finished quilts, skip plastic bins and opt for a breathable muslin sleeve. Roll the quilt loosely and slide it into the tube to prevent sharp folds and deep creases. Muslin helps regulate humidity and keeps the fabric safe from dust and pests. Avoid rolling too tightly or with high-loft batting. You can add a cedar chip pouch at the end of the roll for extra protection. Write the quilt's name and size on a cloth tag at the sleeve's edge. Rotate stored quilts every season to keep fibers from settling unevenly.